Is that just me? I've got some feedback happening. That's all right. Okay, well, everybody, welcome to, I know we said last week was episode 1. Technically, that was episode 0, though, so that's my bad. So welcome to episode 1, I guess, again, Finding Your Why. Thank you so much for coming along, and I hope you're excited to get started on this amazing series of programs that we've got lined up for you. Now, just some ground rules again. Well, not really rules, it's kind of the opposite. If you have a question, just ask. Just unmute your mic, just jump straight in. That's for 2 reasons. One is because that's the kind of culture that we want to kind of create with this. This is a discussion. It's not a lecture, even though sometimes it might sound like it just because that's sort of naturally the way that these things work. But we want to try to make it as much a discussion as possible. But the second reason is because I'm staring at some slides and I cannot see what's happening on Discord in the background. So it's good to have some feedback occasionally. Otherwise, I don't know if I'm talking to myself in the room I'm in, or if I'm actually talking to people online on the internet. How's that sound to everybody? This is a test.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Cool. Well, like I said, welcome to episode 1, Finding Your Why. This is the first of quite a few different sessions that you're more than welcome to come along to over the next little while. Sorry, I'm trying to get my other screen to work at the same time. Yep. So we have, like I said, a lot of great content lined up for you guys, and one of the cool things, the best thing that will happen is, after the next, I think the next session is one that will also be run by me. I just want to try to establish some of the foundations of how the next weeks are going to run. But then we're going to be hearing from some really amazing people from across the space sector and even beyond the space sector to hear from their experiences. So you'll hear from people like Adam Gilmore from Gilmore Space Technologies. If you don't know him already, he's the guy that's building rockets up in Queensland. Him and his amazing group of, I think, about 70-ish engineers and other people at the moment. We've got people like Flavia Tassanadini in Adelaide from Fleet Space Technologies. And we've just got some really incredible people who are mentors at Moonshot, and they're going to be coming along talking about the different, each of these different episodes from their experience, so that you can get a taste of what it's like to be a part of a space-related startup, a little bit beyond what you did in the boot camp. And also so you can start to get contact and actually interface with some of the amazing people that are leading and building the space sector, not just in Australia, but around the world. So I hope that this all seems exciting to you. Feel free to ask any questions on the Discord as we go along as well. So don't forget, I think there's a couple of groups that have posted these, so that's fantastic, and I'm looking forward to getting a good look and sort of giving my 2 cents on them as well. But your weekly cadet logs, really, really easy stuff. Just tell us about, what is it that you're working on? And even if you're not working on anything, think of some ideas and just tell us about, what are some of the ideas? And we'll talk a little bit about that in this session. It's simple, 5 lines. What are you working on? Tell us about the good things that have happened in the last week, the bad things that have happened, and was there any ugly things? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's around, have you discovered something that's a real roadblock in pursuing whatever it is that you would like to pursue? And of course, the last one is, do you have any asks, very specific asks for the network? The more specific it can be, the more likely it is that someone will be like, actually, yeah, I can help this person with that. Whether it's an introduction or whether it's spending an hour or so with you developing some sort of, let's say it's a business plan or something. These are the sort of things we can help with. Now, why is all this? Now, this is a big topic for today's session. Well, that's because at the end of this Ideator, we really want you to have found a team, and probably you've been through several teams. We want you to have discovered at least one idea and probably several different ideas. We want you to have built a project and proven that there are customers out there, that there are people out there who need you and who need your solution to a problem that they have. That's what this is all about. It's not about founders and starting a business, even though that seems to be that's going to be a bit of a theme during these sessions. It's really about, do you want to work on a team? Do you want to work on something, on an idea that really helps move the needle and actually makes a difference to the world? That's what all this is about. And it all starts with simple things like these cadet logs and just talking and sharing and discussing your ideas that you have and even the news that's happening around the world. Now, diving in. me a shout out if you recognize this quote and who it might be from. I need some elevator music or maybe some cricket noises. I need like a soundboard in the background. All right. Well, okay. So I'll tell you, it's from a guy named Simon Sinek, and we're about to watch a short video of his. I think hopefully it'll work actually in a moment. You will maybe recognize his TED talk from it's a video that feels like it was recorded on a toaster back in the 1800s, but it is an incredibly jam-packed short video of just gold nuggets on a lot of things. It's talking about marketing and branding, but it really goes a lot deeper than that. And the crux of it is this: people don't care about what you do; they care about why you do it. Whether you're a brand, whether you are selling an idea about anything, whether you have an idea on where to go for a holiday and you're talking to your group of friends about that. It really comes down to something more emotional. We're storytelling beings, and it's about that story. You'll hear this theme of storytelling quite a lot during our sessions, and that's what this one really, really comes to. As humans, as people, we really have this bad habit of talking about the what quite a lot, and especially if you come from an engineering background, we love talking about what rather than the why. We give ourselves titles at work, so we'll be, okay, so you're an engineer or you're a CEO or whatever it is. And then you sort of describe what it is that we might be doing. And so when the first thing, when you meet someone, usually they ask, well, so what do you do? But that's kind of boring, right? We know that that's sort of, boring, and it just makes for bad small talk. Passion and really enthusiasm is really, really important. We are those emotive storytelling beings, and no one can sustain, for themselves as well. No one can sustain working on anything that they aren't passionate about. And so you can't really expect anybody around you to feel like they have a connection with anything that you're discussing with them if it isn't something that they can also potentially feel passionate about by virtue of living through you for a moment. So anyone that's embarking on a new business or has joined a new startup or anything like that, a world-changing project, they need to be able to communicate what passion drives them to do what they do, and to build rapport with their users, with the customers, with potential investors, because that all creates supporters and a community around what it is that you do. So, big question is, well, what motivates you? And people don't often get a chance to stop and think about this during their daily lives. It's very, very easy to get caught up and just sort of to go through the motions of, just work. And, you're like, well, you have a job because it earns you money and you need money to pay rent and to buy food and all of these things. But one of the tasks that I want you to try to think about, especially over the next week, but ideally for the rest of your life, is to really think about this question: what motivates you? It's a really, really important question to just try to find time and to think about it. Now, it's also a very difficult question to answer, and there's a lot of different ways in which you might answer it. So how do you start nailing what that is? One of the ways you can think about it is, thinking about what are some of the things that you think are super important to change about the world today. That's one of the things that that can really motivate you to say, all right, I'm really passionate about climate change. Well, what would you like to change about it? So these are the sort of leads that the threads that you can pull on that can lead you down a path to something much more fulfilling to try to work on. And if you're going to be remembered for one thing after you're gone, what would you want that to be? That's another way of really thinking about this question, and something that not a lot of people get to think about. And I think that there's a lot of people that have a sense of what that might be, but it's a challenge to articulate that, and even more of a challenge to dare to articulate it, to actually vocalize it, to talk to other people about some of the things that you might be passionate about. It is a bit of a bold thing to come out there and say, I really want to try to solve this really big challenge, especially if you are in a country like Australia or New Zealand where we have tall poppy syndrome. So we're going to really try to, we're going to reverse that challenge, and we're going to say, okay, let's start to articulate what motivates us. What do we feel passionate about? What are some of the domains of problems that we would like to try to address to make this, to build this into a better world? So if I'm going to give you an example, I think that's only fair. For me, I feel that there are only really 3 paths for humanity, and this is a really, really big one. You don't have to necessarily have something as big as this, but this is what drives me when I wake up every single morning. There's 3 paths for humanity. We can be blind, and that means that we can continue as we are. We can risk a mass extinction event, and I know this sounds intense, but depriving the universe of the only known sapient life that we know of to exist. The second one is that we can go dark. We can drastically reduce our consumption. We can return to a pre-industrial civilization. We can artificially limit our global population, and we can live in a zero-sum world of effectively complacency. And again, we can wait for the next mass extinction event. And so these number 1 and 2, they really are, on a long enough timescale, the same thing. So 3, though, our option is to be bold. And that means that we can diversify, we can reach beyond Earth, and we can cultivate growth in space, both for Earth as well as elsewhere. I really believe that in space, we can use it so that we can enrich and replicate the biosphere for new migration events and creation of biodiversity. Now, there's a lot of jargon in that, but really, I think everyone could hopefully see what I'm getting at with this. And this is really my purpose for why I think that we need to move out into space. And it's not for those rockets, those satellites. Of course, the technology is really, really cool, but it's because I really, truly believe that if we look up into the stars, towards the stars, in space, it has the solution to our most difficult challenges that we face here on Earth. And it's the only way, I believe, that we can actually solve a lot of them. So it took me years to develop this out. And yours might not be necessarily as bold, and that's totally fine. But one of the things that I think is worth saying is, if, again, just to think about, if we're going to be remembered for something after we're gone, what would you want it to be? And so for me, this is that. So as you're thinking about it for yourself, it might be something that kind of looks something similar to this, or it might be something more grounded, pardon the pun. But it's really important to just think about these questions and start to articulate them, because that will help guide you in what kind of projects you want to take on board, or what kind of companies you want to work for, and what kind of people you want to be around, because we only have a short amount of time on this planet, and so there's not enough time to spend it doing things that you're not passionate about and you don't think are actually contributing what you would like to the world. So another question that I have for you is, and I love asking this question to people all the time, and this starts to get towards the what, but it's really still about the why. It's sort of, if you're really struggling to work out, why it is that you are passionate about, solving climate change or something like that. Sometimes it's easier to start with a what, and you sort of use that as a way to sort of wiggle in. So if you had a magic wand that could change the world, what would you do with it? And so it's easy because you don't necessarily think about what exactly you would do. You don't have to think about what's theoretically possible to build, by moving electrons using, electronic circuits or mechanical robots and things like this. But what would you actually change? And I think this is a really good question to think about when you're starting off on a particular idea, or you're looking for a particular idea, or even a domain of problems to solve. So this is even before you think about, I've got this idea to solve a problem, if you're looking for one. This goes before that. And this brings us back to, well, what's your why? Because understanding what drives you helps you build that rapport with other people around you. It helps you clarify for yourself what you should be doing and what drives you. And we know that we need to bring other people on board for collaboration. We can't do everything on our own. And we definitely shouldn't try to do everything on our own. It's just a great way to burn out. And so if you have a clear purpose, which is a big journey in itself to try to solve that, to try to work that out for yourself, and then you can more easily communicate your concepts with others. And we spoke about this in the boot camp as well. Part of the reason why it was so important to do those storytelling and pitch competition was because that communication is really, really critical. And I'm sure you even encountered this within your teams, trying to communicate these technical concepts between people with totally different skill sets and backgrounds. Communication is probably the biggest superpower that you can develop. It gives people an empathetic reason to join your cause, whether it's those customers, whether it's investors, if that's what you're looking for, new users as well, especially in this day and age, where even big corporations can't escape that there are political realities to whether people will choose whether or not to use your particular products. Now, people focus way too much on technology a lot of the time, and that's the what. And so it's very, very easy to sort of, I guess, settle for talking about, what it is you're doing. Okay, so we're building electric vehicles. Okay, we're developing a new kind of satellite. But you really need to do what you can to try to avoid doing that. Talking about the why to begin with, and I'll show you exactly what I mean here. I'm not talking about it in a very fuzzy way that's kind of like what a con artist might do. That's a very extreme and intellectually dishonest way of misusing and misappropriating this kind of superpower. But it is really important to acknowledge that talking about these things in this way is really, really critical. Yeah. So one of the things that I'd like to ask everybody here, if anybody would dare, and Sasha, I'm going to ask you to help me because I know you can see the names of the people that are in the channel at the moment. So why did you choose the challenge that you did during the boot camp? And why did you like that particular challenge?
So I see we've got Med
Oh, yeah.
3D here, Space Shits, and Starstruck. If one
Right,
of
I'm
you
glad because
wants
I was
to
going to
have a
say,
go.
because I think we chose those challenges because they were quite interesting, and we knew that they would attract different kinds of people because we had the ones that were obviously very much environmentally focused around the climate and things like this, but then we obviously had things like flashing for humanity, and so we really I think spaceship was a really interesting one that we were able to draw out of that one. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What was it that drew you to those challenges?
I'll start the conversation so it's easier for others. But my name is Luis. I was in the spaceship team, and being someone in sustainable fashion, circularity is always at the core. For instance, toilets. We already have so many different types. Why do we need a new one? Sometimes growing more doesn't mean it's necessary. There's a new term in fashion called degrowth. And the point of that is that we already grow everything we need, it's just not distributed correctly. And so when we're thinking of new challenges, what are the concepts that we can pull together to make something that lasts long, but also doesn't destroy our planet or future planets or solar systems? And so that's why we chose to focus on not using electricity in the beginning or any source of power, because in those outer systems we just don't know our capabilities, and we can't nowadays we see some probes, they've lasted a while in Mars, but then their batteries end up dying and we're not able to get more batteries over there, stuff like that. So with the toilet, we wanted to make it as circular as possible. Materials that we could find are sustainable in that sense. Yeah.
I love it. That's a fantastic one, and it's great because you included a little bit there about your personal background and some of the things that you're doing before the challenge, which led you to this as well.
I picked that challenge in specific because the others were a bit too technical for me, whereas this one had more sustainable background in the challenge, and that's why I felt comfortable with trying to think of toilets.
Fantastic. No, and it was obviously a fantastic solution that you proposed as well. Who else do we have? Is anyone else bold enough to put their hand up and talk about why they were passionate about tackling the challenge that they did?
We've got Maddie and Monish from Med 3D. If either of you can unmute.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hi, Monish.
Yeah. So, the reason why we chose to do cancer in space medicine, right? That's kind of the question that I'm answering. So, well, I guess the first reason was that I just wanted to do something that was completely different to what I was doing already. I was kind of bored with, uni stuff, sick and tired of exams, and I was like, okay, I need to get my mind off with something different and something nice. And I was like, okay, I've never done any biomedical project. Might as well try something related to that. and it's space engineering as well. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And also, I felt like I didn't know that space medicine was actually a viable thing and something that was really important. So I was like, okay, this is curious. Why would they put something like this? And I was like, yeah, this is probably something that I want to look at compared to like a few other ones.
Yeah, so tell me tell me a little bit more about what you discovered about space medicine, and why, like, what was it about space medicine, or medicine in particular, that got you interested? Is this a challenge that you feel like you would do again,
So,
even if it was slightly different, if it was still around space medicine?
I actually don't know if I would do it because, um, well, I didn't exactly know what the difference would be in manufacturing medicine in space, manufacturing medicine on Earth, and I also felt like, I mean, as much as I can, I try to diversify the topics as much as possible, and I was just really completely out of touch with like the medical side of things. But if it was like some other time during the year, I might not have. But I thought at this point in time it was particularly interesting in that sense. I wanted to know what the difference was, I guess,
Yeah, fantastic.
if that
That's
answers
great.
the question.
It does. No, that's good. I mean, so there's no right or wrong answer with a lot of these questions. It's really just about having the opportunity to reflect on it and to think about it, and to think about what that might mean for you, and how you might carry that new knowledge about yourself into the future as well. So no, that was fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Yep, thanks.
Great. Now, so we're going to try something. Let's see if this works here. I have a video. It goes only 2 minutes. There is a longer one online, so let me know if the audio doesn't work. But I'm just going to try to hit play here. So this is Simon Sinek, and this is a video that I was telling you about. So Simon Sinek, you'll probably see him all over LinkedIn now, and he's a little bit famous now. But this is why. This was a TED talk that he did. I think it was in like 2008 or 2009 or something. I didn't even know TED was that old, but it's really really good. So let's just tune in for a couple of minutes.
We unfortunately aren't getting any sound on this end.
I was hoping. All right. In that case, what I'm going to do, you're going to see all this work in real time. I'm going to copy that. Come back over to Discord. I'm going to put this in the Incubator General. I think you can all see what I'm doing, right? Let's all watch it together, but remotely. So we'll come back when everybody's back. We'll give it 2.5 minutes from now.
Alrighty, so I guess if everyone's muted, we'll be all good. Otherwise, welcome to leave this call and then rejoin. 2.5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, how do we all go?
Are people back yet, or do we need another minute or so?
Probably should have clarified. It is a 5-minute video in total, but we didn't need to watch the whole thing. But maybe it's okay. We can watch it if people are watching the whole thing. It is a very good video. Isn't just checking my screen share, Sasha? That's still sharing, is that right?
It's sharing the Discord.
Yeah, excellent. That's all right. I'll flick back over once I can see some people coming back in. So for those of you, if you happen to be back in, then feel free to unmute. Just let me know that you're here. And once we've got a bit of momentum going, then we'll move back on with the show. Great idea, Alvin. If you're finished, you can click on the finish flag now. On the as the emoticons down on the there we go. Cool. All right. Looks like we got some 6 people. They're back in. All right. What did everybody think? Whoops. It's going again. How do I move past this? There we go. We'll go back here for a second. What did everybody think? Feel free to, and Sasha, I'm going to ask you to help me here again, just because I don't get rid of this bar now. Because I can't see anybody now, but I'm going to assume, I think it's safe to assume, only because I know so many people that I've shown this video to in the past have said, wow, like, okay, I haven't really thought of things like that before, especially, like the example about Apple or Nike. Actually, I'm not sure if they're in that specific video. I'll post the full video up later. But what are your thoughts about this? I'm really, really curious to hear, especially from some of the people that have spoken and that were part of the boot camp, that spent a lot of the time trying to work out how do they pitch the concepts of the solutions and the challenges. What do you think about this idea of talking about the why, then the what, all before the how?
I know people had some fantastic pictures, and they focused in on the reason and
it is so. All right, so I'll jump in. So it's a very different way of thinking, but it is like we were talking about when if you came to the session with Alan Jones when he's talking about storytelling. And this is why I keep saying, like, we're very much storytelling creatures. The way to get someone's interest to begin with is to talk about something, it's never about the what or even the how. You don't start off with that. Like Simon said, it's easy because it's really clear. It's very well defined. And we want to move further, we want to start with what's well defined and then we move towards something, that's more fuzzy. That makes us feel comfortable when we're telling it. But if you put yourself on the other side of the equation, when you're someone who's hearing a story, when you're hearing somebody's idea or anything from anybody, any form of communication, you always want it to be the other way around. You want a little bit of mystery. You want a little bit of emotion. Think about how a story works when you're watching a Pixar movie in particular, the most amazing storytellers of all time. They never start off with the ending, where they tell you how it's all going to finish up. You have to be taken on a journey. And so you start with the more fuzzy things. You start with the why, the things that are like, oh, okay, that's got my attention. I really think that we need to do more to help, the world solve the climate crisis. And there's a lot of philosophy and ideology and things like this that are in there as well. And that's what gets us excited and motivated to say, yes, tell me more. I want to hear what it is that you're doing. And then after you've told them about what, they say, well, okay, how are we going to do this? So it's a much more engaging journey to take people on. And so this is one of the exercises that we're going to work on. So, introducing to you all golden circle. And so this is one of the tools, the very first tool that we're introducing you to for the Moonshot Ideator, that we're actually going to get you to work on as you come up with ideas. And just even beyond ideas, I actually use this for everything. If I'm thinking of a blog post to write, if I'm even thinking of a post to write on social media, I always think about starting off with the why, the how, and then the what. I think I keep getting the last two mixed up, but the why, the how, and the what. So as an example, okay, why? Well, we believe that renewable energy can power the entire world. How? Well, we use the latest technology to deliver low-cost, high-efficiency solar power to consumers. What? Well, we make solar panels, and they look like tiles, and they harvest the sun's energy in gorgeous batteries to use it at night. It's a much more engaging story when you hear these three things like that. And if you think, everybody, I think every person said, oh, wow, 3 minutes to give a pitch. That's really, really hard. I think that the best pitches are the ones that can be done in about 10 seconds. And then if you can do a 10-second pitch, if you can't do a 10-second pitch, then you don't truly understand what you're trying to solve yet. And so if you develop a 3-minute pitch, it's usually better to start off with that 10-second pitch and then to start expanding that out, only adding what you need, because there's more condensed, more concise you can make these concepts and these ways to communicate what it is that you're working on and why it's so important, the better. So the golden circle is a really, really important tool, and it's great because it's one that you can just remember by simply thinking about, when you're writing something or you're talking about something, start with the why, then move to the how, and then talk about the what. Now, this is something that's kind of quite similar in a lot of ways. It's called the Gaddy pitch. This is inspired by a guy named Anthony Gaddy. I actually think this may be an Australian invention, but it's another kind of one of those simple things. If you need to come up with a pitch that distills everything right down, as simple as it can be, and I'm pretty sure Ellen Jones spoke about this one as well, it's a way to explain your technology or your business or your idea or anything so that anybody can understand it. If you can explain it so that your golden retriever could understand it, then you know that it's great and you really truly understand it. So the simple format, like an equation, starts off with the words, you know how that there is this problem. Well, what we do is solve the problem in this particular way. And in fact, here's why we're 10 times better than anything else. So if I was to talk about Moonshot, you know how it's really hard to start a space-related business. The space industry itself is really, really challenging. And people don't really even understand what space is all about. They think it's about the rockets and satellites, not about how do we really solve our biggest challenges. What we do is make that much more clear to a lot more people. We bring people together so that they can understand how to collaborate and how to use space so that they can solve our biggest challenges. And in fact, we're a few years in and we're here today because we have run some really amazing programs. And so we've got a lot of momentum all around the world in helping people connect with space that would never have connected with it otherwise. Now, that was a little bit longer because I was doing that on the fly as I realized I didn't have an example to go. But you can see where I'm going with this. So I would like to ask some daring people again. If you were to take your challenge that you had, or even a new one, if you got something else that you're working on, maybe it's your day job or day work or something, a project that you feel really passionate about, can you turn it into a Gaddy pitch? Let's try it now. Who is daring enough to give this a go? And Sasha, I'm going to get you to help me. I want you to pick somebody out if we don't get anybody putting their hands up.
So I see Cameron. Cameron's joined us for today. Maybe you could do a Gaddy pitch for the PAAS. Is that too mean to put you on the spot for?
That's a great idea.
I can give it a go, yeah.
Thanks, Cameron.
Okay, so you know how UTS doesn't have an aerospace major for their engineering? Well, what we do is we run some small-scale aerospace projects so that people can get involved. And in fact, usually there's a pretty good chance that our members and executives end up being interns at aerospace companies.
That's a good start. Yeah, I like it. Now, one of the great things about the student clubs getting involved with Moonshot is that these concepts, like I said, work for anything, not just startups. And so we've helped a few different student clubs from across the country work all this out because as I'm sure you're aware, it can be really hard to get the funding that you need and the support from your university so that you can grow, the programs and the initiatives that you think you need to do. And so being able to give these kinds of pitches and really clearly articulate in a very compelling way to those stakeholders that can give you those resources is really, really important. And so one of the things that, if you would like to, whether if you want to work on working out how do you pitch past UTS to UTS a bit more to get those resources, to get more support, and trying to work out exactly, if you're selling that concept to the university or maybe to sponsors, there might be different pitches that you use to different stakeholders as well. So I just want to pull on this thread just a little bit because I'm fascinated with the idea of these student associations in space and helping them access more money, because it seems like an impossible challenge a lot of the time. So if you were to pick the university, what do you think your biggest value is to the University of Technology Sydney? What problem or challenge do you think that Pass UTS can solve for them?
Well, I suppose it's a way that they can make the university appear more appealing to people who are interested in aerospace, but they, might not necessarily have gone to UTS otherwise.
Okay, yep. So that's okay. I was gonna pull on that one a little bit more, but I think you've got So you can help bring new people to UTS that wouldn't have considered UTS otherwise.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is a good. So it's a great hypothesis, a good assumption to test over time. But let's go with it for now, because it might be as well. I know a lot of universities say, well, they've actually got quotas behind the scenes. They say, well, we need a certain amount of diversity of students that come from domestically versus overseas, and even different locations overseas. And so there might be a more specific problem there that you can say, actually, how there's this problem around, getting those certain quotas filled. Well, what we do is make it really exciting to those particular demographics to come to UTS, to join our club, and to get the experience and exposure to these things that that at the moment the raw degrees don't offer, because there is no aerospace degree. Then you can have it, in fact, that cherry on the cake at the end there can be something around maybe your heritage, maybe some of the success stories that have come out of past UTS in the past. So if you'd like to work on that a little bit more over time, let me know, because I think it's a really worthwhile one to do. Cool. Now, the next thing that I want to speak about, I'm not just moving on from this. This is going to be a topic. I want to talk about all of these things that we're discussing today over the week and into the weeks into the future on the Discord server as well. So just because I'm moving on doesn't mean I'm just like, cool, we've wiped our hands. We want to continue to discuss it and continue to work on it with you. But now, the massive canvas. Now, the reason why I want to put this in here, this isn't something that I've made up. This is something, it's actually CC blacked out. This actually comes from a group that used to exist from Sydney called Pollinizer. I did have have them listed here somewhere, but I think I've accidentally changed the font to black. Anyway, I truly believe that the only big things the only things that are really worth doing, dedicating your entire life to, are the things that are so hard that most people think that they're impossible. Because it's the same amount of effort that if you're going to do something that's truly massive versus something that's just, it's hard, but it's doable. It seems possible. And so once you have a sense for your own why, it's really great to think about, what the most massive thing that you could do in that domain could be. Something that's so big that you can't even contemplate how you would do it today. And so using this, we're going to use the very low-hanging fruit example again. So as an example is, what if we could demonstrate a battery-powered supercar using a Lotus and our electric engine and batteries? What if we could launch our own electric supercar? What if we could use our own batteries to power homes? And what if planet Earth was solar-powered? So the massive idea is really about, that North Star is really about how do we make the entire planet be reliant entirely on renewable energy? How do you even start to do that? Well, the first small step that you can make is, what if we just make a battery-powered supercar? And there's a lot of reasons for that, but and so the big the strategy behind that would be something along the lines of, well, we can sell a very low volume but high value product to a lot of very wealthy people that can afford to pay it, by building a brand around it, by building making it cool basically. And so with that high value, low volume, high value means that we can have a great gross margin. So there's a big profit margin that we can then funnel into more initiatives like building our own batteries that could power homes, and we can grow our business in there. And one thing leads to another, and we get to the big solar powered thing. But it's all about understanding, having a big enough vision that says, okay, I've got this really big thing that I want to achieve. I'm so passionate about it, and that's Z. And you're at point A at the moment, and you don't necessarily know how to get from A to Z, but you can work out how to get from A to B and maybe from B to C. And you just work out, well, okay, as long as we work out where our North Star is, and when we get to C, we can work out, maybe it's easy from that perspective to see how to get to D and maybe E. And it's about taking, just small steps incrementally and compounding success, by, just slow and steady progress over time. And then eventually you've achieved really, really big things. So the massive canvas is a really, really important tool to get people to be inspired to say, actually, I want to do something that's really, really big. If I am going to dedicate my life to something that's truly worthwhile, if I've got this really big passion, I've understood, I've got a good idea about what I think I'm really inspired to achieve, so that people can remember me by this thing after I'm gone. Here's how I can start to build it out, even if I only know what I can do today. And so this is a tool that we're going to be using over the next few weeks. And experimenting with as you try different things, as you start to explore what you think that your why might be. And this is useful for if you want to start your own potential startup, as much as trying to understand what what groups are out there that you might want to work with, and people that you might want to work with, that align with the same values and with the same strategies to get to that vision that you're thinking of as well. So to reiterate again, to how to use this, well, the first thing is, think about your idea and make it so massive that you can't even contemplate to achieve it. And that's what you put in box 4. And then you go all the way to the other side of the scale. What's the smallest version of the exact same thing that's so cheap and so easy to create? And you put that in the first box. And then you just join boxes 2 and 3 with potential steps, and they might change over time. But the idea is that at least you have that starting hypothesis. That's a really, really critical thing. That puts you ahead of 99% of people that say, oh, I've got a good idea. But it's about the execution. And if you don't even have a strategy to say, well, what does that execution maybe look like, then you're not going to get anywhere. So this is that first real step. So if you were to take SpaceX's business plan, pardon me. Great website, waitbutwhy.com. Sorry, pardon me 1 second. I'm losing my voice. SpaceX's business plan. This is basically a massive canvas, actually written up by the author of Wait But Why. Fantastic blog. If you haven't ever read it before, highly recommend that you go over there and have a look. But it really starts off, point A. Well, phase 1 was, figuring out how do we put things in space. There's a lot of trial and error there. There's a lot of trial and error at every stage, really, but particularly at that very beginning. That first goal is really about saying, well, we just want to launch something into orbit. And then phase 2 is all about revolutionizing the cost of space travel. So how do you make that a little bit cheaper over time? So the key goal there is then to make a Mars ticket down to $500,000. Now, why is that the goal? Well, that's because there's a lot of people in the world that do have. There's a lot of people that don't, but there's a lot of people in the world that do have $500,000 of assets and value. That theoretically, if they wanted to have a one-way trip to Mars to go and live there, well, they could do that for $500,000. So that's a really nice sort of very clear goal to get down to, and that itself is also very, very massive. But the really point B or point Z, as I would put it, is, well, we need 1 million people on Mars. And if you were reading all of the challenges, you'll sort of recognize, especially around the Flushing for Humanity one. I spoke about the economists generally agree that we need roughly about 1 million people that are living on Mars to create that sustainable off-Earth settlement. And so that's why that point B, and only once we've got to that point can you really say that we've colonized Mars. So this is a really good strategy to follow, and if you need some inspiration, where you can see that you can take this to SpaceX, Tesla, Amazon. There's a whole bunch, Google, a lot of companies. You can actually see whether they've specifically tackled their growth in this kind of way or not. You can start to distill it down to these kinds of strategies. So if you can do this from the beginning, then you can set your a potential path for your own journey. Now, I'm going to talk about this concept of the minimum viable product. It's something that's a bit of a buzzword during the bootcamp in particular, and I think everybody misunderstands this. It's become a bit of a buzzword because a lot of people still assume that it just means a prototype. But it's not really necessarily a prototype. It's not necessarily even a product itself, or even some features that make up a product. It's really the most lean, simple thing that you can do to test an idea with actual customers, so that they can give you feedback and tell you like, no, that's not interesting, or oh yeah, if you've got that, I'll give you money right now. And that's when you've got a great solution to a problem. It's really a proposal. An MVP is a proposal to test a potential solution with a customer's problem. So this is not an MVP. I think a lot of people sort of think in this way. They sort of say, all right, we're going to start off with this concept and we're going to add some features and we're just going to build it up. And then all of a sudden our customers are going to love it and they're going to pay us money for it. But that's not what an MVP is. That's more of like, say, all right, we're starting to build a prototype, but it's just the wrong way. If you're trying to say, all right, we need to get people to get from A to B, and so we need to have this, this vehicle, and you plug it into the wall so it gets some charge, so it has energy and it stores that up, and it can take you to A to B by turning the wheels and propelling you using that energy over time to make you sure that you can travel much more effortlessly than you could with your own 2 feet. You wouldn't start by saying, well, we just need 1 wheel. Oh, okay, we can add another wheel and we got 2. Okay, now we're going to build a body to this thing. It doesn't work that way. It looks more like this. This is what an MVP is. Pardon me. The first thing is, if you're going to get to a car, you say, well, actually, we just put a board down and we put some wheels on it, and you can move quicker on that. You can just scoot along the ground, but people can fall off, and so that's that. So what if we add a stick so that you can actually hold on and make it a little bit more stable? Actually, what if we had a seat so you can sit down as well? You'd probably go a lot further with that. Now, what if we added a motor to this and just automated it a little bit so you don't actually have to pedal anymore? Now, what if we add a cage around all of that? That's how we get to a car. So that's the process that you'd really follow with something like this. Turning that MVP at stage 1 into a really great product at the end. So, questions that you should ask if you've come up with you have an idea about what it is that you want to do with your life. It sounds intense, but what it is that you are really, really passionate about working on, and you say, great, and I also know I've got this problem set. I know I want to help these kinds of people on these kinds of challenges, and I've got a particular idea or something I think I can work on. These are some of the things you can think about to work out, is it really an MVP, or are you actually just talking about features of a product? And I can't speak about this any better than I can show you here, so I just give you a chance to absorb it and have a look at it. All right. So we're getting to the end of our section today, so I just want to say, look, one of the best things that you can do, especially I know all of you people that are here are very, very creative because you're a part of the boot camp. So keep a list of big ideas, and I'd be surprised if a lot of you don't already do this. You're sitting on the bus or the train, or you're walking to work or whatever. You come across something, you're like, actually, that's a good idea. Write it down. It's always good to keep a list of great ideas because it means that you start to exercise that muscle of trying to think about, put yourself in other people's perspectives, in other people's shoes, and try to work out, what are some of the challenges that they have that you might see, you might come across, and try to think about how much you make the world a slightly better place. So start creating that list and start sharing some of those ideas that you have. Start talking about some of the things that you're thinking of and that you might observe as you go about your day-to-day life, about how you might think space or anything might be able to be used to solve a big problem. The more that you share, the more feedback that you get from the world, and the more you're able to refine it. And the more you're able to also find people to collaborate with, to work on you with these things. So in that same vein, dare to share your why. Talk about why, why you think, what it is that you think that you're really passionate about, and what drives you, or might drive you to work on a particular kind of problem, so that you can meet, like-minded people, which there are many, many of in the Moonshot community. I can guarantee you. And when you do that, we'll see you on the server. So, look, thank you very much for coming along to our very first episode of our 2022 Ideator series. I hope that this has been interesting for you, and I'm looking forward to introducing you to many of our amazing mentors over the next few weeks, and really getting to know you guys, and to start seeing some of the projects that you can work on, and where we can help you go with those things. So thank you so much, and let me know if you have any questions, and ad Astra.